to Behind the Story with A.R. Simpson. Whether you're driving to work, tending the yard, feeding chickens, folding laundry, or simply enjoying a quiet moment, thank you for inviting me into your day. Let's spend some time together. I'm really glad you're here. If this is your first time listening, welcome. Here on Behind the Story, we begin every episode by reading a chapter from one of my books. Then together, we'll go behind the story to discover the inspiration, the life lessons, and the faith woven into it. Along the way, we'll also talk about writing, life on our little homestead, and hear stories of God's faithfulness from listeners just like you. Before we begin today's chapter, I'd like to leave you with one thought. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do isn't pretending we know the way. It's admitting we need someone to show us. Every great story begins with a single page. Let's turn today's page together. Chapter 3. Campfire Lessons. Mike Carter had always believed the woods could teach a person things they would never learn inside four walls. Patience, for one. You couldn't rush a fire into catching. You couldn't demand a fish bite the hook. You couldn't force the weather to obey your plans. Out here, a person learned to watch, wait, listen, and respect what was bigger than himself. That was one of the reasons he loved bringing his family camping. The other reason was sitting near the edge of the campsite, poking at a pile of pine cones with a stick and pretending she wasn't too old to be interested in pine cones. Emma, his oldest daughter, 12 years old, nearly 13, and changing faster than Mike knew how to keep up with. One minute, she was a little girl riding on his shoulders, asking him to check under her bed for monsters. The next, she was rolling her eyes at his jokes, reading thick books, and acting like she didn't need anyone watching out for her. But Mike knew better. Growing up didn't mean needing less guidance. Sometimes it meant needing more, just in a different way. "Dad," Lily called from the picnic table, "can I put this rock in my backpack?" Mike looked over. His youngest daughter held up a gray rock about the size of a grapefruit. "Why?" "Because I like it. It weighs 2 pounds. So? You'll complain your backpack is heavy within 30 seconds. Lily looked offended. "I would never." Emma laughed from her spot near the pine cones. "You complained your water bottle was heavy yesterday. That was before I became stronger." "Yesterday?" "Yes." Mike folded his arms, fighting a smile. "How about a smaller rock?" Lily looked down at the rock sadly. "This one has personality." "So does your sister, and we're not putting her in your backpack either." Emma looked up. "Excuse me?" Lily giggled. Mom, standing beside the food bins, shook her head. "Mike." "What?" "You're encouraging them." "I consider it team building." Mom gave him the look that meant she disagreed, but loved him anyway. Mike grinned and returned to sorting kindling beside the fire ring. The afternoon had slipped into evening. The warm glow stretched across the lake, and shadows had begun to lengthen between the trees. Campers at nearby sites were lighting lanterns and starting fires. Somewhere across the campground, a child laughed loudly, followed by the bark of a dog. Normal sounds. Safe sounds. Mike liked them. They reminded him that they weren't alone out here. Even so, his eyes kept drifting toward the fallen log at the edge of their campsite. Beyond it was the deer trail. He had noticed Emma noticing it. Twice now, maybe 3 times. He wasn't worried exactly. Not yet. But he knew curiosity when he saw it. He had been full of it himself as a boy. He had followed creek beds, climbed trees too high, crossed fences he shouldn't have crossed, and once hiked so far off his uncle's property that the family dog had to track him down. He had been sure of himself then, too. Very sure. That was the problem with being a confident kid. You rarely knew the difference between brave and foolish until something went wrong. Mike stood and brushed dirt from his hands. "Girls," he called, "come here a minute." Lily appeared first, still holding the rock. Emma came slower, the way older kids did when they suspected a lesson was coming. "What?" Emma asked. "Family campfire class." Lily groaned. "Another class?" "Absolutely. We're on vacation. Learning does not take vacation." "That sounds unfair." "It is deeply unfair," Mike said. "Sit." The girls sat on the log near the fire ring while Mom continued preparing dinner behind them. Mike crouched in front of them and picked up 3 sticks from the ground. "Question," he said. "What do you need to start a fire?" "Fire," Lily answered. Emma smirked. Mike pointed a stick at Lily. "Technically, no." "Then why is it called starting a fire?" "Because if we already had fire, the lesson would be over." Lily considered that. "Good point." Emma answered properly. "Fuel, heat, and oxygen." Mike nodded. "Exactly." He placed 1 stick on the ground. "Fuel. That's what burns." He placed another stick beside it. "Heat. Something to start it." He held up the third. "And oxygen. Air." Lily frowned. "Air starts fires?" "Air feeds fires." Mike arranged the sticks in a small triangle. "Take away 1 piece, and the fire dies." Emma leaned forward slightly. He could tell she was listening. Really listening. Those moments felt precious lately. Mike continued. "Survival is similar. If you're ever in trouble outdoors, you need 3 things." He picked up the sticks again. "Clear thinking." He placed the first stick down. "Shelter," the second. "And hope," the third. Lily tilted her head. "Hope?" "Yes." "I thought you'd say water." "Water matters too. So does food. But you can go longer without food than you think. You can survive some discomfort. But when people lose hope, they stop making good decisions." Emma was quiet. Mike looked at her. "That's why panic is dangerous." She nodded slowly. He could almost see the wheels turning in her mind. "Panic tells you to run," he said. "Wisdom tells you to stop and think." Mom came to stand beside him, wiping her hands on a towel. "That's true in more than the woods," she said. Mike smiled at her. "Exactly." Lily looked between them. "This turned into a sermon." Mom laughed. "A short one." "Those exist?" Emma laughed this time. Mike picked up a small pine cone and tossed it lightly in his hand. "When I was about Emma's age, I got lost for 2 hours in the woods behind my uncle's farm." Emma lifted her head. "You did?" "I did." "Why didn't you tell us that before?" "Because then you'd know I'm not as wise as I pretend to be." Lily gasped dramatically. "Dad has a past?" "A very dramatic one," Mom said. Mike sat on the log across from the girls. "I thought I knew exactly where I was going," he said. "I had walked those woods before. I recognized the big oak tree, the creek, the fence line. I was confident." Emma's expression changed slightly. The story had caught her. Good. Mike continued. "Then I decided to take a shortcut." Lily made a face. "Uh-oh." "Exactly. I told myself it would be only a few minutes. 1 quick cut through the trees. I'd come out near the barn." "Did you?" Emma asked. "Nope." "Where did you come out?" "Nowhere helpful." Lily laughed. Mike smiled, but the memory still carried an old discomfort. "At first, I wasn't scared. I was annoyed. I kept walking because I was sure the barn had to be just ahead." "Was it?" "No." "Still not helpful." "No," Mike agreed. "Then I got mad." Then I got embarrassed. Then I got scared. Emma's eyes stayed on him. What did you do? The wrong thing first. Which was? I kept moving. Mike looked toward the trees beyond the fallen log. I made myself more lost because I didn't want to admit I didn't know where I was. For a moment, no one spoke. The lesson sat quietly between them. Then Lily asked, How did you get found? Our dog, Rusty. Your dog found you? He did. My uncle sent him out, and Rusty came straight to me. Lily's eyes shone. That is the best dog story ever. He was a very good dog. Emma rested her chin on her knees. Were you scared? Mike nodded. Very. Did you pray? The question surprised him a little. He glanced at Mom, then back at Emma. Yes, he said, I did. What did you pray? Mike thought back. He remembered being 13 years old, standing beneath the trees that suddenly looked too tall, his throat tight, and his eyes burning because he didn't want to cry. I prayed, God, please help me to stop being stupid. Lily burst out laughing. Mom covered her mouth. Emma grinned. Dad? What? It was honest. Mom shook her head. Maybe not the most polished prayer. God heard it anyway. The laughter softened into quiet. Mike let his voice grow serious again. That's something important to remember. Prayer doesn't have to sound perfect. Sometimes the best prayers are the simplest ones. Help me. I'm scared. I don't know what to do. Emma looked down at her hands. Mike hoped the words mattered. He didn't know why he felt such a need to say them this weekend. Maybe because of the trail. Maybe because Emma was growing up. Maybe because parenting sometimes felt like standing on a shore, watching your child paddle further into deep water, and praying they remembered how to swim. He cleared his throat. So what did I learn from my very dramatic childhood survival experience? Always bring a dog, Lily said. That's one option. Never take shortcuts, Emma said. Closer. Admit when you don't know where you are? Mike pointed at her. That one. Emma's small smile faded into thoughtfulness. Being lost isn't the most dangerous part, Mike said. Refusing to admit you're lost can be worse. Mom nodded. That applies to life, too. Lily sighed. Another sermon. Emma elbowed her gently. It's a good one. Mike stood pleased. I'll take that review. After dinner, the family took a short walk along the lake while the sky turned pink and orange. The water lapped gently against the shore. Small insects hovered above the surface. Somewhere in the distance, a frog croaked. Lily skipped rocks badly. Every rock plopped straight down. That one almost skipped, she insisted. It sank immediately, Emma said. It skipped underwater. That is not a thing. It is now. Mike watched them bicker and felt that familiar ache of gratitude. They argued constantly, those two, over blankets, snacks, television shows, who sat where in the truck, who got the last pancake, whether Lily was allowed to enter Emma's room without knocking, whether Emma was being too bossy, whether Lily was too loud. But beneath it all was something strong, a bond Mike hoped they would carry their whole lives. Lily adored Emma, even when she drove her crazy. Emma protected Lily, even when she pretended not to care. Mike had seen it 1,000 times. Emma tying Lily's shoes when they were running late, Lily saving Emma the last cookie, Emma standing between Lily and a barking dog at the park, Lily crawling into Emma's bed during thunderstorms. Sisters could be complicated, but they were also a gift Mike never wanted either of them to take for granted. When they returned to camp, The fire had burned down to glowing coals. Mike added another log and watched flames curl around it. Mom settled into her chair and opened her Bible again. "Tonight," she said, "I want to read from Proverbs." Lily groaned softly. Mom looked over the top of the Bible. "Something to say?" "No, ma'am." Emma grinned. Mom read, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight." Mike felt his chest tighten slightly. Paths. He looked again toward the dark edge of the woods. The deer trail was invisible now, swallowed by night, but he knew it was there. Mom closed the Bible partway. "What do you think 'lean not on your own understanding' means?" Lily raised her hand. "You don't have to raise your hand," Emma said. Lily kept it up anyway. Mom smiled. "Yes, Lily. It means don't act like you know everything." Mike nearly laughed. Emma gave Lily a look. "What?" Lily asked. "That's what it means." Mom smiled. "That's actually a pretty good explanation." Emma looked personally betrayed. Dad leaned forward. "It means our own understanding is limited. We don't see everything. God does." Emma stared into the fire. "So trusting God means listening?" "Listening," Mom said. "Obeying? Being humble enough to admit we need guidance?" Lily poked at a pine needle on her sleeve. "Even when we think we already know?" "Especially then," Mike said. The fire crackled. For a few moments, no one spoke. Mike wondered if Emma heard the warning beneath the verse. Not a warning born out of fear, a loving one. The kind parents gave because they could see farther down the road than their children could. At least sometimes. Later, after dishes were washed, food was locked in the truck, and Lily's collection of pine cones had been reduced from 18 to a reasonable 3. The family prepared for bed. Emma helped Mom zip the food bin closed. Mike noticed her glance one more time toward the woods. Not long, just a quick look, but he saw it. "Em?" She turned. "Yeah?" He nodded toward the fallen log. "You know the rule." She looked slightly embarrassed. "I know." "What is it?" "Stay where you can see camp." "And?" "Stay on marked trails." "And?" She sighed. "Don't follow deer trails." Lily popped out of the tent. "What about fairy trails?" "Especially not fairy trails," Mom said. Lily looked deeply disappointed and disappeared again. Emma shifted her weight. "I wasn't going to go." Mike studied her face. He believed her, mostly. "I know," he said. Her shoulders relaxed. Then he added, "But sometimes the best time to decide what kind of person you'll be is before you're tempted." Emma frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means if you wait until curiosity is pulling hard, obedience gets harder." She looked toward the trees again, then back at him. "I'll stay close." Mike smiled. "Good." He wanted to say more. Wanted to warn her again. Wanted to somehow place all his years of mistakes and lessons into her heart, so she wouldn't have to learn them the painful way. But children couldn't borrow wisdom completely. Some of it had to become theirs. So he simply kissed the top of her head. "Love you, kiddo." "Love you too." She slipped into the tent. Mike stood outside a while longer. The campground quieted slowly. Lanterns dimmed one by one. Campfire smoke drifted lazily between the trees. The lake reflected a half moon. Somewhere, far off, an owl called. Mom came to stand beside him. "You're worried," she said. Mike exhaled. "A little." "About Emma?" about how much she wants to grow up. Mom smiled sadly. That's what children do. I know. You can't keep her little forever. I know that too. But knowing a thing didn't make it any easier. Mike looked toward the dark woods. I just want her to remember what we teach her when it matters. Mom slipped her hand into his. She will. Mike nodded, though his heart felt unsettled. Inside the tent, the girls were whispering and giggling about something. Safe, close, together. He held on to that. Still, as he stared at the shadowed place where the deer trail began, Mike whispered a quiet prayer into the cool mountain air. Lord, keep them safe. Help us guide them well. And if trouble ever comes, help them remember they're not alone. The wind moved through the pine branches. Soft, low, almost like an answer. Mike turned toward the tent, ready for sleep. Behind him, beyond the fallen log, the deer trail waited in darkness. Still, patient, unseen. That was chapter 3 of Lost Beneath the Pines. Now, let's go behind the story. One of the things I enjoyed most about writing this chapter was seeing the story through Mike's eyes. In the first 2 chapters, we mostly experienced the camping trip through Emma's perspective. But this chapter really lets us step into the heart of a father. So, as a parent, Mike knows something Emma and Lily don't know yet. He understands that the biggest dangers in life rarely begin with like an actual disaster. They usually begin with pride, with believing we already know the way. And one of my favorite moments in this chapter is when Mike tells the girls about getting lost as a boy. He thought he knew where he was going. He took what seemed like a harmless shortcut. And instead of admitting he was lost, he kept walking. And that line has stayed with me ever since I wrote it. Being lost isn't the most dangerous part. Refusing to admit that you're lost can be worse. And I don't think that's just true in the woods. I think it's true in life. Sometimes we find ourselves spiritually lost. Sometimes we're like emotionally exhausted. Sometimes we're carrying burdens we were never meant to carry alone. And yet pride just whispers, I'll figure it out. I don't need help. Everything's fine. Or even, I don't want to bother God with something so small. But one of the bravest things we can ever say is, Lord, I need you. I also love the moment when Emma asks Mike what he prayed after getting lost. And his answer, it still makes me smile. But he says, God, please help me stop being stupid. Because, like it says in the story, it's not polished. It's not eloquent. It's simply honest. And I think that's one of the most encouraging reminders in this chapter. God isn't waiting for perfect words. He's waiting for honest hearts. Even starting this podcast, I battled with like, oh no, should I wait until I have like better equipment? Should I wait until I have like a really nice room set up to record and I can have videos of me and maybe like someone with me speaking? But I don't think any of that would add to the overall message I've been trying to convey in these episodes. The most important thing was just taking that leap of faith and trusting God will take this where He wants it to go. So some of the most powerful prayers we'll ever pray are the simplest ones. Lord, help me. I don't know what to do. I'm scared. Please guide me. As a parent myself, I also connected deeply with Mike in this chapter, and I tried to pull some of my own feelings and thoughts into it. As a mother, how would I react or how would I talk? But what felt even more special to me is that I also tried to step inside my husband's shoes. For friends and family that know my husband and our family and that have read the book, I think there are instances throughout the story where you can see my husband through the character Mike. And with that, I was really trying to dig into not only my husband and I, like how we would react in these situations, but also just trying to imagine what are some reactions that are just universal, that all parents could relate to. And one of those was every parent reaches a point where they realize they can't make every decision for their children. We can teach, we can encourage, we can pray, we try to prepare them before they face difficult choices. But eventually, they have to decide whether they'll follow the wisdom they've been given. And I imagine that's a little how our Heavenly Father feels with us. He lovingly teaches us through His Word, through prayer, and through the people He places in our lives. Then He invites us to trust Him when we don't fully understand where He's leading. One verse that I think comes to mind is Psalm 32:8. I will instruct you and teach you in the way you should go. I will counsel you with my loving eye on you. I mean, what a comforting promise, right? God doesn't simply point us toward the path, He walks with us as we follow it. He's right by us every step of the way. And we don't have to fear going through anything alone. So that's some of what was going through my head with this chapter and this part of my story. So now we'll go behind the keyboard because before we move on, I know I mentioned in episodes 1 and 2 the two books I'm currently working on. So if you haven't listened to those, go ahead and you can go back and listen to those episodes so you're up to date on what to expect coming out later down the line. But today, I'd like to talk a little bit about the process of getting to publish my first book. So, I think I've mentioned it started with seeing these videos on my Facebook, actually, of people talking about a way to make like side money, like selling your own journals and stuff on Amazon using Canva. So you just decorate the cover how you want, and you can even add like these cool little sections on the inside pages if you want, like side notes or like to-do lists. Like you can make it how you want it. And well, honestly, it really intrigued me. So I looked into it, and I do actually have like two or three, I think, blank journals. Like I designed the covers, but the inside pages, they're just blank. Maybe I think they have like some flowers in the corners or something. So I do have those for sale on Amazon as well. They weren't my best work, and looking back now, they honestly make me laugh a little. Um, but while I was doing that, I saw an option where it says to publish. It'll ask you, like, are you publishing a journal or an actual book? It was something along those lines. So, of course, it got my attention for a second, but I really didn't think much of it at that time. But then, after that, I started seeing videos about publishing actual books too on Amazon. So then that's when I really started talking to my husband about it. And of course, he was all for it. And, here we are. I think on the next episode, I will touch on how I got the book edited and the formatting for Amazon and all that. Because, like I said, I don't know what you listeners are looking into. Like, who knows? Maybe one of you would love to do that, would like to publish your own book and you hadn't heard of this yet. And so I do want to make sure to go a little into depth on that on some of these episodes, just talking about the entire process of how I got into it. And who knows, maybe actually one of you decides to do this and you figure out a better way to do it or an easier way, and you can reach out and we can help spread that even more. So, but that's today. Today's little look into my publishing experience so far. Just a little snippet of it. And now let's head around the homestead. One of the things I love most, but also maybe sometimes dislike about having animals, is that they always seem to find new ways to surprise us. One of the things you'll quickly learn about our family is that we probably spend way too much time talking to our animals. Because it was just about a week or two ago, I was super happy because I was hanging out with our turkeys while they were free ranging. And so our turkeys, we have two. They aren't fully grown yet. We actually still don't even know if they're like male or female. Of course, we're hoping for at least one female because we'd like to have some turkey eggs. But while they were roaming, my husband and younger daughter decided to try and make turkey noises. And at first it was like really funny. But then we saw our turkeys start puffing up. And we started freaking out because we were like, oh no, that's okay. So that one's a boy. And then the other one also started puffing up. So we got bummed because we were like, oh no, we have two boys. Like, no eggs. Like, we're just going to have two boys. Like, what do we do with two male turkeys? But something made me want to Google it. I was just like, I don't know. I feel like that's not a set in stone. Like, yes, you have two boys just because they were, they were puffing up their tail and like looking like how male turkeys look. And sure enough, when I Googled it, it said that at this young age, both male and female turkeys can puff up like that. So we would still need to wait until they're older to know for sure what they would be. So that was a cool little surprise to find out that both both turkeys do that, and we still have a little bit of hope that we could still have a girl. So tiny moments like that, just sitting around and laughing, hearing my husband and daughter sounding like turkeys, they teach me that some of life's greatest lessons come in ordinary moments. Not every lesson happens during a big adventure, and those are some of the stories I'm really looking forward to sharing with you in the weeks ahead. But now we have the last part of our podcast, behind your story. If God has answered a prayer, helped you through a difficult season, shown his faithfulness in a quiet moment but unforgettable way, or even your experience coming to Christ, I'd love to hear your story. You can email me at behindthestory@gmail.com, and you'll also find that email in this episode's description. And if you could do me a favor, in the subject line of your email, write "behind my story" so that I may find your story easier and I don't want to miss anyone's. So then, with your permission, your story may be shared in a future episode to encourage someone else. Because God is still writing stories every single day. Before we go, I'd like to leave you with one last thought. The first step toward finding the right path is being humble enough to admit you need God's direction. Never be afraid to ask him for help. He delights in guiding his children. So thank you for spending time with me today. If today's episode encouraged you, I'd be honored if you'd follow the podcast and leave a review. It really helps other people discover the show and become part of this growing community. And don't forget, you can always share your story with me by email. Whether your story feels extraordinary or wonderfully ordinary, it matters. Remember, every chapter has meaning, every story matters, and God is still writing your story. God bless, and I'll see you next time on Behind the Story with A.R. Simpson.